How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing fine. Terry just wanted to get his voice in there first this time.
I'm gonna
He's all hyped.
sabotage and take over the host duties. How about that? This episode is about me. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh wow,
Wow.
that's
Oh wait, I
exciting.
forgot to do this. I forgot to
Turn your
turn my
lights on.
lights on. Yeah, I look a little dark. Oh, let there be light. Hey, so
That's
Phil, we usually start off with a question. Kind of fun banter. I got one for you.
nice.
Yeah, told you I'm taking over. I'm taking over.
Oh, this is awesome. Like this is like vacation for me. Like I'm
Yeah.
good.
I'm taking over, boys and girls. Gather around while Uncle Terry tells you a tale. Okay, this is my favorite time of the year, by the way. I don't know if everybody knows this. Let me just declare this. I am Mr. Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving. Phil, do you know why I love Thanksgiving?
Because there's food.
The food is amazing. Okay, and I love Thanksgiving so much, by the way, that I have an inflatable turkey
I
in front
support
of
that at
my
this point in my
house.
life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. His
Yep.
name is Tom. The kids know he's Tom. Tom Turkey is out there right now. There is no, let me repeat, no Christmas decorations in my house because it has not happened to be Thanksgiving yet. Okay. I got a deacon around the corner whose wife is a heretic and they have Christmas inflatables up already. And so there's a little beef between me and the Junkin family. So here's my question for you. Where are you at on Christmas decorations? When is it
Our
okay to put them up? When is it acceptable and when is it not?
So our in-house rule is that Christmas decorations go up the next day post turkey.
Yes.
So that's the in-house structure. It's the expectation. Doing so out of order causes social anxiety and chaos for the peoples.
Is that is
Um,
that you or Jill or both that feel that way?
I think Jill would probably be content to let it spread a little bit, have a little edging of the holidays one to the other. I just want each holiday to have its place. Like
Yeah.
I like Turkey Day, um, and I'm not talking about all the historical problematic nonsense that we attach to Thanksgiving, etc. I like the family. I like the turkey. I like the relaxation. I like the break. I like the premise of its observation in its current cultural setting. Let's be thankful for the abundant blessings that we have. And yeah, like if I could find a turkey taco inflatable, it'd probably be in the driveway right now, like just
Hey,
taking up a massive space.
let me tell you something that's disappointing about this is that I bought Tom Turkey, which by the way is 6 feet tall. He's a massive turkey. In fact, if you see my house, if you haven't, the front of my house is my lawn is like a triangle shape. And so the very front of it, from like border to border, is like less than 15 feet. And you got to put a driveway in there. Tom takes up almost all the room that you can see.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
So I support that.
yeah, yeah. But you go to look because I got to be honest with you, I was really threatening. I bought Tom Turkey from Walmart several years ago, and we still lived in Memphis. It was a way to embarrass my kids because they're inflatables, and now I've got inflatables for Halloween, both Gustbusters. I've got inflatables for Thanksgiving, and I got a big snowman and a coffee cup that it says on it cup of snow, and his
Oh yeah,
head
oh yeah.
turns. Yeah, I do these things to embarrass my kids. I almost bought the bass boat with Santa fishing out of it for Christmas, but I went online to look for a turkey to sabotage my neighbor from church that has all this Christmas stuff. I was going to go unplug everything one night, just plug up the turkey, put it in their yard. You cannot buy inflatable turkeys anywhere but Amazon anymore. They all have to be ordered. That nobody carries
Yeah.
them. We have totally, as a culture, turned our back on Thanksgiving, and it's sad to me. It's sad.
Yeah,
By the way,
it's being skipped.
yeah, and so much so,
Um,
like, did you ever do Black Friday? By the way, like, really do Black Friday?
we haven't really done Black Friday of any kind of substance since probably like 2007, 2008, and just I just decided I don't want that much stuff to justify getting up that early.
Yeah,
And
I
we
stopped
kind
doing that. I did the
of
ordering stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And so I keep an eye on deals. If we can get it ahead of time, like cool. Like so. As a side note, for the most part, our major Christmas acquisition of blessings to share with our kids is done. Like it's basically accomplished at this point.
So we
Because it's not
used
complicated.
to,
It's not a thing for us to really go nuts on that stuff. And our kids are older.
yeah, like, I mean, my middle one's going to college, so anything she gets for Christmas is going to be college directed, right? I mean, that's just how it works. So, but here's the thing, like, we used to get up really, really early on that Black Friday. I've been to two different cities. One year, Duane and I were married early on. We went to Louisville first, ended in Nashville. That's how aggressive we were. Like, now we don't even leave the house. There's no sense in it. I can get everything online. What's the big deal? Now it's not even Black Friday. It's just Black November. That's what it is now. Like, so Friday after Thanksgiving will be Decoration Day. Not a moment before that. Okay, not a moment before that. And by the way, just to put everybody's mind at ease, I was at Publix here yesterday. Turkeys were less than $1 a pound. Calm down about overpriced turkeys, by the way. It's not true. You can get them cheap. I bought two for less than $1 a pound. I don't know about you, Phil, but I'm going to be smoking two for next Thursday. So anyway, favorite holiday.
Yeah,
There you go.
we're staged ahead. We're gonna be smoking the turkeys like a boss, so they're gonna be good.
Yeah.
I got to drop this thing for.
I'm going to smoke
for
them.
it.
I'm going to smoke them overnight Wednesday and then Thursday and take them off Thursday probably. Make it not overnight. Get up early morning.
Yeah.
I'm
And by
going
the
to
way, Paul
inject.
Hams, you're correct. Smoked turkey is the premium
Yes.
turkey. I've now recently sampled all the varieties from fried, deep fried, baked, oven, smoked turkey, East Texas style is my champion turkey.
What's the secret to the good smoked turkey though, there, boss? Tell me.
Butter.
Butter. Like,
Butter
you
and
got
thyme.
to put so
Pound.
much butter on that bad boy. 4 sticks of butter all over it. By the time
Yeah,
you're done.
one full pound of butter is a good ratio for a 15-ish pound turkey. And my seasoning is super simple. It's 50-50 coarse pepper, coarse salt. You got to brine it. Make sure your brine ratio gets up to around 4 to 5%. At your starting point, it's going to drop down a little bit. Whether that's brine from the factory, if you get it from Butterball, or self-brined at home, your outcome is going to be really similar. Like, you're not going to have a big difference if you get organic, raised, farm-fed turkey, self-brined at home versus a Butterball in the taste. Health-wise,
Yeah, I told somebody the other day, I was like, look, if you buy a Butterball turkey, it's already brined. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, get the Butterball Premium. Your work's done. Just thaw it out. And listen, I'm so much on the pepper thing. It's got to be fresh ground, by the way. I bought a grinder, an electronic grinder, just to have my fresh pepper, baby.
Yep.
So you and I are on the
sport.
same page. Yep.
By the way, if you forget to unfreeze your turkey, it's okay. Put it in a bath. Keep changing the waters until it gets down to temp. You'll be fine. We'll have a separate episode of smoking your turkeys when we're smoking our turkeys. We'll go live.
By the way, we're not going to broadcast next week. So just so everybody knows, no do the work next week. No do the work.
Hey, Twitch is dropping in. Want to become famous, Terry?
Yeah. Well, listen, joke's on you. We already are. And Big Fellows. I thought that was Big Fellows. No, I know the IP address of Big Fellows. So.
Yeah, we've been spam botted in Twitch. We are already the most watched religious episode on Twitch. So
this is how you know you've arrived, when you get spammed on Twitch. By the way, look, Mom, we've made it. We've made it. Yeah.
All right, we got to start talking about anything but turkey because I'm getting hungry. So let's kind of nail a couple things down. I got a brisket
to cook too. Now you're really hungry. Okay, go
ahead. I'll help you out with that. On the eating side, I'm sure you'll do fine on the other side.
No, you won't.
So our conversation today is kind of dealing with some things that we've talked about in the past, mainly on the consequence side, like what happens when things aren't going well and how does that breakup look like and how does the transition from where you're at to where you're going share out. But this is kind of a buffet of concepts all into one basket to make these things better. One of the things that came up in our bad advice episode from last week was the agreement for departure considerations. And lots of churches do that well. Some of them do it very poorly. Preachers don't necessarily do that aspect of it well.
Depends, though, doesn't it? It depends on whether you're in control of the breakup or not. Like, I think that's one of the important parts to clarify. Like, if I'm the one leaving, hey, I leave really well.
Yeah. But I'll put it this way. Even when you're in control of the lever pull, a lot of times our egos, and preachers have at times both very large and very sensitive egos, feel like we've got to control that thing for it to go well. And here's some boundaries that I thought through a little bit. Sometimes we think it's a great breakup, like when you left the group you're with and you're going to go somewhere else or do something else, if they're willing to have you come back for a meeting. I'm going to tell you that's a very poor metric of success. That simply means that the leadership at the church feels like that's the best solution for the group. It doesn't mean it's a great breakup. It just means that whomever's making that decision either still likes you or wants people to think they still like you. That doesn't mean that it's a healthy relationship. And so I think there's some space for us to mature through, first as preachers in that realm, but also as fathers, husbands, deacons, elders, disciples, and that whole space to understand the tiered relationship that we have. Because we are constantly adjusting the equalizer of all of those roles and trying to find the priority balance that's best for everybody. It's super hard to do, by the way. And so think about it this way. The generation before us, before Terry and I, when we started preaching, had a very well handled grasp on the idea that they would not be with a local church for a long time. It was exceptionally rare for that generation to stay somewhere more than 5 years. I would say that's a 5-year mark is probably a good demarcation. And if it was more than 5 years, and we're talking like 10 years or 15 years in that earlier generation, now you are basically a one-of. You're a one-off. There's one guy in Southern California who did that. There's one guy in Middle California who did that. There's one guy, 2 guys in East Texas who did that. There's one guy, and so if that's the extreme that they didn't know, a lot of these guys actually got really good at saying goodbye because they did it all the time. But that doesn't mean they were good internally. They were just good on the external side.
The other thing that they did is they didn't really get too attached either, because they didn't expect to stay very long.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of negatives to that. Is all I want to say. I don't think that it's good to maybe say that we're going to indefinitely stay somewhere, but it's also not good to say that every 5 years we're going to change like that. But they were good at saying goodbye, but they weren't. And a lot of times, because you knew you were leaving, you just weren't as connected. You knew it was very, very temporary, right? The joke was nobody moved as much as people in the army and preachers, right? That's who moved the most. And so, we've both been through this a couple times, Phil. I've been through this in a situation where I was asked to leave, and I'm not really hidden from that too much. And it's interesting that I think that's harder when I left. When I left my first and second works because I had decided to leave, I did not have the same issues. I did not have the same concerns. I did not have the same stress. And I did not have the same heartbreak that when I was asked to leave. And it's really hard to figure out how to do that, when to do that, how to do that correctly. Part of this also came up, you and I, and if you've not listened to the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, you probably should. It's just there's a lot in there. One of the things that hit me today, there's a super episode, I guess is the best way to describe it. Phil, would you call it a super episode? It's like 2 hours long that dropped last week.
Yeah, extra bonus.
Yeah, bonus. There's a bonus. And I think there's only one left. But what became really clear in that was the inability to know how to end things from both sides. And I'll liken this back to when we were dating, which is, it's been a long time. when you and somebody broke up and you were dating, you couldn't control what they did, but you can control what you did. You're in control of everything. So that's the key, I think, for me, is that we are the ones who get to, for lack of a better term, we get to make sure that we know what we're doing, and act the right way, and act in a way that isn't harmful. That's the main goal out of all of that.
Yeah, and I think part of this kind of process here is building a relationship that is kingdom inclusive as well as the local disciples inclusive. And so that everybody knows that our commitment to the local church includes that kingdom rationale. That's part of that process. And Chris is talking about perspectives there. Look, he's not talking about me, but Chris's comment described me at a certain point. Like, if you had asked me if I had any intentions to leave from the Cookeville region, my answer would have been no.
Yeah.
But I don't have the entire process in that. And eventually my no became, yeah, I've decided it's time to move. And Paul's making a comment because Paul's experience is unique because he's stepping into the role of an evangelist at a later point in life. And so being pushed out of a setting in a secular world is far more common than some folks understand. Like, you get forced out of roles, you might stay with the same company, but now you've been pushed out of two different, positions in that same company. And there's a layer of development as a person and a participant in that workspace that grows because someone said, yeah, you're done.
Right.
You need to go do this now. And
the element. Go ahead.
The communication aspect around that is big. We've got to talk about it better.
The element that's missing from the secular workforce that makes this different is that this is my spiritual family. So when I decide to leave my spiritual family, it's going to be for a reason that to me is really, really important. And by the way, at least for me, and I think you too, Phil, there's been a lot of opportunities for me to leave where I'm at and go other places. I fielded a lot of phone calls where the answer was just no. I'm really happy where I'm at. The work is where we want it to be. And so when you finally make that decision to even talk to somebody on your own and to leave, you've already gone through so much debate and inner turmoil. By the time you make that decision, there's not much to rehash or regret because there's so much at stake here. When you're pushed out, it's like a hateful divorce is the way it feels like. I don't know. There's a better way to describe it. It's like there's a bitterness. There's a wait a minute. This is my spiritual family. I'm losing everybody that matters to me, and you didn't even give me a choice. And Chris is talking about me in this sense. I wanted to stay there forever. There were some that did not, and for a long time we were able to coexist. And even a couple months before I was asked to leave, there was a pretty tense meeting. I was given some directives. I agreed to that, to coexist. And I followed everything that was asked in order to stay because that's what I wanted. And 2 months later, even though I had done everything that was asked, there was still this separation in our agreement because at the end of the day, there were just some that wanted me to leave. And it's interesting that I talked to a former leader there yesterday, and he even said, he goes, look, there's people here that still think you quit. They don't realize what went down. And all I'm going to say is that it's different. It's different, Phil, when you're pushed out because you're losing everything. And so I think the involvement of your spiritual family is such a huge part of this, that if we allow, and let me tell you the end result of that, the temptation of that is this: when you go through what I went through, you don't want to get close to anybody. You want to switch back to that I'm going to move every 5 years. You want to switch back to the hireling mode of I'm not actually a member of this congregation, I'm just here to help them. Like,
Yeah.
because it's the safe zone for you. You don't have to go through all those emotions.
Here's another thing that need to be put into the table. It's not just about the relationships that you profit from. A capable, effective evangelist has positive relationships with that group, and they lose that safety net, the confidant nature aspect of it. And when you depart for whatever reason, you're thinning that support network for them. Um, um, it's important to kind of just, again, learn that that's okay. Um, and it's going to be all right. You just have to approach it in a way that the relationship is in that big space, that big picture, kingdom, local church, family, all those things. Chris says he's never been asked to leave, but he's made that choice. And yeah, people are people. This is my thing. Very often we identify the reality that brethren will hurt us the most. And the reason, this is my personal interpretation of that brethren hurt us the most, is we care about that relationship the most. If a random person somewhere doesn't like something I've said, I'm not really bothered by it. But if someone whom I've invested my trust into cares negatively about something I've done or said, that hurts immensely more than just that first, okay, they don't like what I said. Okay. You can pull up any number of levels of responses and say, okay, that's fine. But we care more. We also read more into those comments. We read more relationship into those negative or positive comments.
Well, and it's like, and then Paul talks about how Paul Hammonds talks about how the Apostle Paul knew he was going to be leaving, but still developed these deep relationships. And my answer to that is, well, yeah, of course he did, because that's actually what the work demands. Like, I think that's one of the things here is, I'm not saying it's right for us to feel like we can't invest ourselves. I'm actually saying that's the wrong approach. We do that because we don't trust God enough to protect us at the end of the day and to take care of us. So we try to do that ourselves by not getting invested into people. And then in the long run, we hurt ourselves. Part of our work demands we get involved. But I will tell you, Phil, one of the things, Chris said there is that he hurt people badly. I tell you who's got caught up in the pain probably worse than anybody else, and you know this, is my own immediate family. Because even when I choose to leave, or I'm asked, the one time I've been asked to leave, choose to leave twice. My kids, for instance, they don't really get to make that decision. They're part of the consideration, especially when I make that decision. But they don't even know why I made that decision. And I may make that decision that's better for them. But it's interesting there that your family suffers from this as well, which is also a very different thing from when you're leaving a secular job. Is a lot of times when you leave a secular job, you're not moving, you're not relocating, you're not changing their church family, you're not doing a lot of the things that when you're asked to leave or you choose to leave, in our situation, it is very rare that your entire life and world does not radically change for you and everybody in your household. And that can be a very traumatic thing. And how you handle that can be traumatic. How you explain this to your kids. That's a tough deal. It's a tough deal to sit down with your 18, 14, and 10-year-old and say, we're leaving the only place you've ever called home or you think of as home. Well, the 10-year-old ever called home. She was born there. The other two, that was home for them. Most of their formidable life was spent there, their school years. And to say, we're moving away to another state. We're leaving. And this is not going to be our home anymore. and to explain all of that. That's a difficult thing.
Yeah, I think each of those components, though, then say like, okay, now how do we make that healthy? We can talk about all those negative aspects of it, and so I think at least on a proactive standpoint, um, move in a way and speak in a way that brings to the table primarily the character traits that God wants you to develop in all spaces: humility, vulnerability. Paul talks about that. Openness with your leaders. Think about it this way: you need to always be developing the church to function in a way that it expects you to not be there at some point in the future and is okay with that. Because if the local church is so bound up in your individual identity that you believe, or the church believes, that it can't function without you, now you've created a very kind of non-solvable situation until you change. Because you've got to change you at that point in order to affect that change for everybody else.
Yeah, you can't build the church on you. You can't build the church. That's one of the things from the rise and fall, we talked about privately. At some point for Driscoll, that group became Mars Hill became Mark Driscoll. And when that happened, that's the bad thing. We can't do that same, like we see that and we go, well, that's terrible. We can't do the same thing by thinking we're indispensable and teaching the church we're indispensable. Like we can't do that.
Right. And here's a way to think about it. And this is a pointed one. When you visit an area when you're not preaching and it's a Sunday, does your question model go, hey, I wonder who's preaching here? Or does it go, I want to know who they worship here? I think there is a powerful difference between those two, between who preaches here and who they worship here. And if you can't see the gulf between the two, that's probably because your blinders are on. And look, we all, to some degree, can trap ourselves into engaging in that behavior. And it's important to say, okay, I got to let that go. Now, it's fine to ask, how do they worship here? What's their approach to the scriptures? All those other ancillary questions. But I want to know who they worship. And that also comes across in how the church is presented publicly. And that's something also for evangelists to think about, because that will also then help with this. How do we say goodbye in a healthy way? If their worship is focused on Jesus, another guy can come in and it's good. It's going to be fine.
Well, and I love Zeke's comment that even when it's not his preference to leave, you own the choice rather than cast aspersions on leadership. Listen, that we talk about how to have a good breakup. One of the things that I'm one of the things I'm very passionate about, and I've been asked to do this before, is especially when you've been asked to leave, you don't go and find a place 5 minutes down the road to move and to preach and to intentionally cause division and turmoil in those members' lives about whether they leave to follow you. Like one of the things that I think for me, Phil, and I think when you decide to leave places, one of the things for me is I'm getting out of town. I'm leaving and getting away. There was one time that I moved to a congregation 20 minutes away, and when I left, I told that congregation that I left, do not follow me. If you come to where I'm at, I'm going to tell you to go back home. This is your home. Where I'm going is not your home. Stay home. And they did. But when I was asked to leave, it was very important to say, we can't stay here. We can't be within an hour of here. We've got to get away from here, because the worst thing you can do is make it about you and be willing to split a church, cause problems, cause division, get out of town. And by the way, in the process, I owned publicly. You can go listen to it. I owned publicly my participation of that I contributed to the demise in the relationship with me and leadership that led us to that point. And I publicly repented of that. And I did that on my last Sunday to make it clear and to say, here's how you all have to act going forward. Because, Phil, the other thing I want to tell everybody that's a preacher, at least, is this. This is told me early on. Always, always, always leave the work better for the next guy than you found it. Whatever you do, you make sure you leave it better than the guy that left it for you. You make sure you leave it. Listen, if you're asked to leave a place, don't pour gasoline on the pews and throw a match out back behind you on your way out the door. Like, not only is that ungodly and the most irresponsible thing you could do, it completely disqualifies you from serving in this work, because it shows you don't care about God and his people. You just care about yourself. So I think Zeke has some great advice there, that when you're in this breakup, you make sure that you're the one that takes the damage, because that's what's best for the church. That's part of the cross you're picking up and carrying for Christ at that point.
Yeah. Well, and my mindset in our departure was always along with what's best for all parties involved. Even the decision, okay, my last preaching Sunday is this day. What's best for all parties involved? Is it best if I'm still in the presence of the assembly, or is it best if our family isn't here? Is it best for the church? Is it like all those things? And now I'll tell you that same group has probably the best fit for its goals is preaching there now. And so they've really kind of got that's great. Doesn't mean it's easy, even though it's the best fit. And here's another aspect of this, is to kind of, again, further recognize this. The choice to preach is going to include an acceptance of the transitory nature of this world. There are some things that are inherent to preaching that just have to be accepted by the preacher and as he leads his family. What's up, Ryan? I see you popping up in there.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make it easier, but accepting it makes you plan for it. It's why, and this is one of the things that I've talked with my wife and with others about, many preachers choose to homeschool their kids. They don't do it for the reasons you think they do. In some cases, they do it because it creates a good context for their family in the transitions they know they'll be making. And that's perfectly fine. I put that in the category of some folks homeschool because of the lifestyle.
They're protecting their kids, but from a different thing altogether. I mean, truthfully, school transitions are tough. And Kramer's comment about a church not firing him or asking him to leave, but in essence helping him, that's a whole nother podcast, but that's a beautiful thing. That's actually something that Phil and I think I've talked about before was, don't necessarily, if you're a leadership, by the way, run to fire a guy. Can you help him grow into who he should be? Rather than just throwing away the preacher, how about help the preacher grow into what you think he should be?
Right.
So maybe we'll talk about that another time, but that's a beautiful story, Chris.
Yeah, and a couple of things. We're getting close to the end of our episode time slot here. I will agree that the Crozier upgrade has been applied, because any Crozier not named Edwin is an upgrade. And so, Ryan, you can actually go quote that next time you talk to your dad. Just quote that verbatim, and he will probably agree. And so you can go and have that statement there. But I'll go on record as saying that as well. Couple things. Terry's always said this at the beginning of our time. We will not have a broadcast next week, and so we'll be off that. But I think he and I both are looking forward to the week following that. We should have a little special episode possibly popping up either that week or the next following. We're going to do a little bit of a book review, but it's not a book review. It's a podcast review on a podcast. But we're a vodcast, and so we can do that. We're not
Vlogcast.
Vlogcast. And we're going to sit down and interact a little bit with a podcast that I'm encouraging everyone to take time to listen to. It's The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. All the different podcast apps can get it. If you haven't listened to it and you're concerned about leadership in local churches, you should do it. Couple caveats. It's for adult audiences, adult in the sense that you can reason through super challenging emotional issues. If you've involved in a difficult church context right now, wait to listen to it later.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't be healthy in
Yeah.
those contexts.
There's
And
also
it has,
there's a language warning too.
and there's a language warning. But I will add this caveat: if the Bible was a movie, your parents wouldn't let you watch it. And so that's my caveat about some of those guidelines, that you can use
Harsh truth
discernment
with
in
Phil
what's good. You can use discernment and determine what you bring into your life, and individual discernment is powerful.
Yeah,
Any last thoughts, Terry, there?
well, the rise and fall thing, I mean, hopefully, I don't know if we're going to get that 2 weeks from today. Maybe we will. But yeah, like you said, if you're going through some church trauma right now, give it a rest. Listen to it later, because you might be a little too anxious to attach yourself to some things. But for preachers, man, that you need to look at this from every angle. But you need to really ask yourself, in what ways am I Mark Driscoll? And there's a self inventory aspect of here, which is what Emerson is leaning into. There's a definite villain in the story. By the way, Mike Cosper, who's the storyteller, I'm not saying he has an agenda, but this is done to get you to listen. There is an agenda of sorts, but it's hard to argue with a lot of the facts that are presented. And Mark Driscoll becomes the villain of the story, and it is a huge kind of look into the mirror for all of us that find ourselves in leadership and how we treat other people. And I just think it's tremendous value for you to think about yourself in comparison to that. I can tell you, early on in my work, I was too much like Driscoll, and some of the things I said, things I did, the way I said things. It's been a huge wake up call for me, and I think there's a lot of value to it.
Absolutely. That's it for our time today. So no broadcast next week. Following that, you'll look for a Mars Hill podcast vlogcast, something like that. Enjoy time with your family. Maybe there'll be a live turkey smoking event at some point on Thursday of next week.
At least pictures.
At least pictures shall pop up here or there. And by the way, if you're going to be smoking a turkey Thursday for Thanksgiving, let me know, because this is the thing. I think we can probably make a group live broadcast of turkey smoking conversation that would be entertaining for all of us who may be out there providing great sustenance on that wonderful day.
Yeah, I'm injecting mine this year. You going to inject yours?
I've done that before. We're not going to do that. We're going strict.
I think I'm gonna inject one. I'm going to inject one and not inject the other. We're going to do some comparison.
That sounds good. Daryl, if you want to join in on our conversation next week about turkeys, let us know. Look, I fully reveal my entire process for what I think works for a turkey. It's no surprises.
I think you should
put it in the
post
smoker.
Your recipe on the Do the Work page, just for all the fans. I think
Yeah.
Today Phil's got a whole database of smoking recipes. Phil's way to smoke a turkey, which is fantastic, will be on Do the Work before tonight. How about that?
Okay.
We'll just go ahead and advertise that.
More butter, salt and pepper. It'll be good.
Yeah. No, you need to go ahead. You got to talk about the pan, when to pan it, all that stuff. I've seen the recipe. You've already got it. Just go ahead and share it. Quit being stingy with your secrets.
They're not secrets. They're just hard-learned facts.
That's right. And if you love your brother, you will share the hard-learned facts so he doesn't have to. So Phil's instructions before nightfall.
All right, they'll pop out here in just a second. I'm just reviewing, make sure there's no typos.
Yep. I tell you, you guys all need this. So see you later, you turkey.
Peace. I'm going to press the out button.